Hi everybody, and welcome to another part of the Solidity tutorials. In this part we're going to work on a fascinating example than the simple storage in Hello World. This is actually a more real world example, and that is a payment contract. So I'm going to create a new file here on the contracts folder, and I'm going to call this payment.so. So here we're going to create a kind of a contract that someone as a payer will send some money, such as, for example, Ethereum, to another person with a specific address. So here the user enters two variables. The first one is the amount of money that should be transferred, and also the address of the person who he or she wants to pay. So the first step, just as always, is to write the license and also import the version of Solidity that we want to work with. And now we'll define the contract, and then we'll have the name of the contract like this, for example, payment contract. So now let's open a bracket, and now we're going to define three variables: the payer, the payee, and the amount. So we'll have the address, because the type of variable is the address. This is actually a kind of data type that we'll have in Solidity, the type address, and also it's going to be public. So address public payer, and also address public pay, means the person who is to be paid. And then we'll have the uint, unsigned int, and public amount. So as you can see here, we haven't put a number after uint, which means that this is going to be the biggest one available. And here we'll have the constructor to define the initial amount of each one of this. So the payer is the person that is sending the message for sending message.sender, ms, which is equal to msg.sender, and we'll use message.sender a lot of times, which means that the person who is going to initialize this smart contract, the person who interacts with this smart contract, so the person who is the initializer of this smart contract. So sometimes this is not about a payment contract, this is about someone who creates the token, or someone who runs the smart contract. That person is the sender of the message, but here that person is also the payer. So most of the time the payee cannot be the message sender, it's just the payee, okay? And because of that, we'll not define the initial value for that. We'll give that, we'll get that from the user, right? So this is also true about the amount. The amount, we do not have any initial value for the amount, because they're going to be determined by the user. So now, right after the constructor, we will define a function which is for making the payment. So function, and so makePayment, and then we'll have nothing as the input, and public, and the type is payable, and this is for paying most of the time. So the type of function is payable, and here we enter instead of the function. So most of the time when we want to define some kind of conditions in Solidity, we use the require. So the require method is written like this. So we'll write require, and then the parentheses, then we'll write msg.sender, and test whether it's the payer. If the payer is the msg.sender, this is going to be true, and it will continue, but otherwise we will give the user some kind of an error message, which here we're going to say only the payer can make a payment, right? So this is a message we send to the user. So if the user is not the payer, then we'll get that person will get that kind of error. So this is a kind of a condition, something like an if statement. So if this requirement has been met, then we'll have another requirement, and that is the balance of the person who is going to pay. So if the amount is defined and the balance of the payer is less than the amount, then the user should face this error message, insufficient funds or insufficient contract balance. So address open parentheses this, and this means the address of this person should then the balance, which is a property for defining the amount of money that the payer has, so it should be bigger or equal than the amount. And if that does not hold, we'll say that insufficient contract balance. So here we can write insufficient contract balance. Notice that gas fee should also be paid for the contract, so that is also another money that the payer should have. So here we'll define two variables, actually one variable, bool success, and then it's going to be, this is the kind of a status that will determine whether the payment has been successful or not. So pay.call and the value amount, with no message here, and there we go. And so in the next line we'll have the require, and then the requirement of this is the success of the payment, and otherwise it will say that the payment failed. So that's it for the contract. Let's save this and see if anything's wrong. So there seems to be a problem here. Let's look at our compiler. It says that expected, okay, something is missing here for okay, here instead of the constructor we should also enter the variables that we want to include. So we've got the pay and the amount, because these two variables are what we get from the user. So address underline pay, and the uint, the amount, which is uint underline amount. Now let's save this. There shouldn't be any more problem here. So now we need to fix something else too. Here we should add the semicolon and save this. And now everything has been successful. Now it's time to test our contract. Now let's close the contracts that we have deployed before, and here we can choose between the contracts. So the payment contract, let's deploy it, and now it has been successfully deployed. Now there seems to be an error. Now let's take a look at the error, what it is. So creation of the payment contract errored, error encoding arguments, error invalid address, argument address, value invalid. So here probably we need to add the payable payee, and we'll try this one more time. Let's save this and deploy it again. Also, don't forget that you need to enter some kind of number here. So I've added another pay address, and for the amount you can choose just any amount that you want to transact. And for example, I enter 6 here, and notice that here the payer is different than the payee. So for the payer, I choose this address, which starts with 0x5. This one starts with 0x7. So here I can click on the transact, and as you can see, the transaction has been completed successfully. Here you can see the details of the transaction, and you can watch the instance, look at the instance of the transaction right over here. So that's it for this part of our tutorial about the payment contract. We will get into more details and create these transactions on a more real world applications and wallets such as MetaMask. But here we're just working on some kind of virtual machine on Remix, so many things might not look very much realistic, but don't worry, our contract worked, and we've managed to compile it successfully. That's what matters for now. But in the future tutorials, once we complete the Solidity, then we will get into interacting with more real world data and options and wallets. So that's it for this part of our tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed it. Till the next one, goodbye.